Offer valid on standard browsers, U.S. only.
When I heard about Date My Age, I thought, really? But there I was in my empty, quiet house, my laptop on the kitchen counter, and I typed in my name. Looking for a man between the ages of 40 to 60? Sure, why not?
Date My Age is different. With verified profiles, you can feel safe and secure to explore meaningful connections with interesting and mature singles.
Date My Age made it really easy. I could join and view online profiles for free. All of a sudden, my empty house wasn't so quiet anymore. I got so much attention, it just made me feel seen and alive. Date My Age helped me start a totally new chapter in my life.
Find a friend, a lover, a partner at Date My Age. Get 60% off when you join at datemyage.com today. That's datemyage.com to connect with thousands of singles worldwide. datemyage.com.
NetCredit is here to say yes to a personal loan or line of credit when other lenders say no. Apply in minutes and get a decision as soon as the same day. If approved, applications are typically funded the next business day or sooner. Loans offered by NetCredit or lending partner banks and serviced by NetCredit. Application subject to review and approval. Learn more at netcredit.com/partner. NetCredit. Credit to the people.
Welcome to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Hour number 2 of the VSiN Weekend Morning Line. Happy Memorial Day weekend to all of you. Every Saturday and Sunday, join me, Tim Murray, live from the Circa Sportsbook at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And you know I'm live because I could do this. I could look over my shoulder and say, how many people are in Circa Survivor? 29 already in Circa Survivor. We had Jeffrey Benson in studio yesterday to talk about Circa Survivor, Circa Millions, and the Grandissimo. I'll get it right one of these days, maybe by the start of the season. The Grandissimo, the high stakes $100,000 entry Survivor contest here at Circa, but $15 million guaranteed for Circa Survivor this year, and $6 million for Circa Millions, so $21 million guaranteed by Derek Stevens and company. And if you see that commercial, just when you see the guy pointing like that at the $21 million. That only took like 15 takes. Just pointing it out there. So I'm thinking about, a career change, maybe heading to Hollywood after all of the Circa commercials I've been in now. That's 2. I'm in 2 of them. But yeah, $15 million is the guarantee. Thanks to Thomas Gable for giving us the latest from behind the counter. Interesting to note, right, that they're not giving up hope. And as Matt Humans lets us know, there's nothing worse than hope. But they're not giving up yet on the New York Knicks. Right now, DraftKings, if you do like the Knicks, they're the best price out there from a point spread standpoint at +2.5. The Pacers laying 2 at most shops, including here at Circa. Right now, and we'll have plenty of more time for the money to come in, but as of right now, at least at DraftKings, a national shop, 60% of bets on the Pacers. However, as you would expect, and we saw this yesterday with Oklahoma City and Minnesota, which is, if you're going to bet this game, more than likely you're going to see the public lay it with the favorite and take the money line with the dog. And we saw that yesterday with Minnesota, at least from the betting splits over at VSiN.com. So right now, 60% of bets at DraftKings on the Pacers laying 2.5, but 60% of the bets and 79% of the handle on the Knicks on the money line. The total I'm curious about. So the total right now sits at 223.5, a slight adjustment from game 2. And as Thomas just mentioned, no real big change, right? 224.5 is where we closed for game 2. 223.5 is where we're at for this game. I mean, everybody's on the over right now for this contest, and understandably so. If you look at the defensive metrics, the Knicks have been terrible. Offensively, they have not been, right? But do they try to slow things down a little bit? I've been really staring at the under here in this game. Haven't gotten there yet, so don't, come screaming at me when, 250 points are scored in regulation like in game 1. But that's the one way that I would look at it here, is to go a little contrarian and to see if the Knicks can play at their pace, slow it down a little bit, even though they've had success getting out in transition. But the indication is, and Ian Begley mentioned this earlier, and we mentioned this earlier in the show, that there could be a tweak to the lineup here. And Ian Begley of SNY reported last night, he said, hearing the Game 3 lineup change being strongly considered by the Knicks is to move Mitchell Robinson to the starting lineup and have Josh Hart come off the bench. The Knicks have the New York starting lineup is minus 50 in the postseason, minus 29 in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Indiana up 2-0, hosting the Knicks on Sunday, as we all know. And I heard this stat too. I think it was from the fellas over at the Locked On Knicks podcast, and they had mentioned that the Knicks starting lineup is actually in the minus if you go all the way back to Christmas. So Tom Thibodeau going to have to make some sort of tweak here. And, you know, we saw it yesterday on the ice as Florida tried to make that effort, or excuse me, not Florida, Carolina tried to make the tweak there in goal, right? They removed Frederick Anderson and they brought in the backup. Didn't ultimately work out, and 5 goals were scored there in the third period. We'll see if this lineup change sparks something for the New York Knicks. I think at this point, look, it's funny how everything comes full circle. When you look at how the Boston and New York series played out after Game 2, the Knicks go into Boston. They steal both games 1 and 2. And I'm not saying the Pacers stole the games, even though you could say they stole Game 1. Game 2, they were the better team. We headed to Game 3, and we saw a massive movement towards the Boston Celtics on the series price. It was sitting at, I think, plus 105 to open. And before Game 3 started, it was around minus, I want to say we got hopped up to minus 130. Celtics win Game 3 at Madison Square Garden easily, and they become a massive favorite. They're up in Game 4. And then, as we all know, it falls apart. The Knicks come back. Jason Tatum gets hurt. The rest is history. Not the same here. Because from a power rating standpoint, both Indiana and New York are on the same level. It was not that case with the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks. So I just want to put this into context, right? In the second round, the New York Knicks, heading into Game 3 at home, were an underdog still in the series. Indiana right now, a minus $5 favorite. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just interesting to look at the differences of what we saw from a series ago to what it is right now. Total has ticked up a little bit, by the way, since we've been on the air. It was 223.5 earlier. It's now 224.5 at some shops, 224 here at Circa. Spread still sits at 2. We'll get to best bets later on in the show. We'll talk to Wes Reynolds as well. Coming up, bottom of the hour, we'll get his thoughts on the Indiana Pacers. Our guy, Chris Miles, thought it would be Knicks in 6. He said he had thought Knicks in 6 against the Celtics. He ended up being accurate there. I don't know if we're going to get there here, but I tell you what, if you do think the Knicks could win this one, boy, you could probably get a pretty hefty price on the New York Knicks to come back and win this series in 6. Once again, history certainly not on the side of the New York Knicks. I believe teams down are up 2-0 in the conference finals are historically, I believe, 76-6 to win those respective series. I do think the Pacers ultimately win this series. I'm not convinced about tonight, though. And once again, I know as a early morning betting show to tell, hey, why don't you go live bet this game? And that's what we do on VSiN Primetime as we go in, me and Matt Humans and Will Hill. We sit there on every weeknight and take a look at live betting options and see what we can get. When you're looking at a spread like this, I just don't know if there's a real advantage to bet it from a pre-flop standpoint unless you are absolutely convinced of a particular side. Now, look at last night, for example, Minnesota and the Oklahoma City Thunder. If you were hoping to get Minnesota at a decent number in game, never really came about. However, whatever you laid with Minnesota, you probably got to the window as they won by 42, led by 20 after the first quarter, led by 30 plus headed to the half. So much more on this game coming up bottom of the hour. Also, hour 3, Zachary Cohen will give us his thoughts. He has a column up on vsin.com. I believe he's believing in those New York Knicks here this evening. But I have to play you this clip that I saw yesterday making the rounds on social media. Because Aaron Rodgers, one who, let's just say, enjoys the pomp and circumstance, even though he'll never say it. Oh, yeah, he's. I don't understand why they're making such a big deal out of all this. Well, because you make it a big deal. But he's still unsigned. I don't know if you knew that. The Pittsburgh Steelers, remember, they drafted, Will Howard in the 6th round. Their quarterback depth chart is not that impressive. But yesterday at some event that Aaron Rodgers was a part of, a youngster took the microphone and was curious about his future. So here you go, in case you missed it. This is Aaron Rodgers addressing his future.
Will Aaron Rodgers ever go to the Bears?
Oh, boy. Security, can we get her out of here? I need some security. Security, can you take it easy on her on this one?
No, but I believe there's a team that might play in Chicago this year.
Let's go!
On a road trip. I don't know. I'm not sure. Got to check it out.
Are you speaking in code?
I love Chicago, though. Way more than they love me.
Look, Aaron Rodgers loves to play it up. Let's take a look at the Bears' schedule now and see who he's talking about. And do the Pittsburgh Steelers happen to play at Soldier Field on Sunday, November 23rd? Oh, they do. Interesting, as that is the game that we are all circling as the one he's talking about there. But hey, maybe he's talking about the New Orleans Saints. You know, they need a quarterback. Maybe they're not going to roll with Tyler Shuck, or is he going to go to the Giants and join Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and Jackson Dart? You know, force a crowd. No, you know, lots of people say that. Or maybe he's going back to Green Bay. Maybe that's what all of this is coming around to be. Yes, it seems pretty likely that he's indicating that he's going to be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when you look at, you know, the Steelers depth chart right now and what they've done this offseason, the acquisition of DK Metcalf, going out and getting Robert Woods, this is a roster that is built for not Mason Rudolph. How about that? Or not Will Howard, but he hasn't signed yet. But yes, it certainly seems like the answer that Aaron Rodgers gave. And yes, Aaron Rodgers, all joking aside, has absolutely dominated the Chicago Bears franchise. Remember, he did the old ownership, and yeah, he enjoys heading to Soldier Field quite a bit. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't really want to play this game all off season long, but it seems inevitable that Aaron Rodgers will be a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers at some point. Or maybe he's just indicating that he's going to Minnesota and they're going to open up the season on Monday Night Football there at Soldier Field and take the reins from J.J. McCarthy. Wes Reynolds going to join us bottom of the hour. But up next, folks, a man was dishing out plus $2 favorites for plus $2 winners, I should say, yesterday for us. We'll talk some college baseball with our guy, Matt Grissom. We'll do that next right here on the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
Offer valid on standard browsers, U.S. only.
When I heard about Date My Age, I thought, really? But there I was in my empty, quiet house, my laptop on the kitchen counter, and I typed in my name. Looking for a man between the ages of 40 to 60? Sure, why not?
Date My Age is different. With verified profiles, you can feel safe and secure to explore meaningful connections with interesting and mature singles.
Date My Age made it really easy. I could join and view online profiles for free. All of a sudden, my empty house wasn't so quiet anymore. I got so much attention, it just made me feel seen and alive. Date My Age helped me start a totally new chapter in my life.
Find a friend, a lover, a partner at Date My Age. Get 60% off when you join at datemyage.com today. That's datemyage.com to connect with thousands of singles worldwide. datemyage.com.
NetCredit is here to say yes, because you're more than a credit score. Apply in minutes and get a decision as soon as the same day. Loans offered by NetCredit or lending partner banks and serviced by NetCredit. Application subject to review and approval. Learn more at netcredit.com/partners. NetCredit. Credit to the people.
You're tuned in to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
We keep it rolling here on Memorial Day weekend. I'm Tim Murray, live from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas. Coming up in less than 15 minutes, Wes Reynolds will jump on the show, a man of much knowledge. Indy 500, Pacers and Knicks, baseball. We'll throw it all at Wes Reynolds, and we'll see what he has cooking up here today. But speaking of cooking things up, how about our guy, Matt Grissom, yesterday, sitting right here next to me, and he said, LSU, they threw a bunch of their best pitchers. Maybe this is a spot that Jay Johnson just wants to get out of this SEC tournament. And lo and behold, Ole Miss takes care of business around plus 220 or so. So as we like to say on the show, well done and do it again. Matt Grissom joins us right now, courtesy of our progressive guest line. Well done, sir. Ole Miss, nice winner there. And now Ole Miss plays the SEC championship today, coming up later on this afternoon. Total around 10.5. And here at Circa, Vandy, the Vandy boys, Jensen Lewis, maybe he's listening again, around $1.55 favorite at Circa. Price is a little higher at DraftKings. So let's go right to the SEC, where you were very fruitful yesterday. What do you think about the SEC championship today, Matt?
So LSU blanked for the first time all season. That was good for Ole Miss's pitching staff, but I think even more so, Vandy has been the best pitching staff in XFIP, Sierra, expected ERA all season long. So we know that they have a good pitching staff. Ole Miss has done it all week long. They've played LSU, Florida, and Arkansas and have allowed a total of 3 runs. And they're doing it by committee. These Ole Miss arms look like they're going to be able to compete with Vandy, as hot as their offense looked yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised if this game goes under. It's not plus 200, but trying to follow up with another winner, not a fade potential loser. So I lean under in that one. The line is exactly where I figured it would be, at minus 160. Not really any value. Our website right now makes Vandy minus 148. If you could get Ole Miss plus 158 or 150, you maybe take that. But at this point, it's too accurately priced, but under 10.5 looks like a good move.
Just from a handicapping standpoint, right, we're about to get into regionals. The bracket will be revealed tomorrow. Matt Grissom joining us here at Grissom on X is where you can follow him on social media. So the bracket will be revealed tomorrow. And obviously the advantage comes if you're able to win your first 2 games, you're just sitting pretty, right, going into that final game. When you look at the pitching situations today and these conference championships, and there's, around 8 conference championship games today, Matt, were there any situations that jumped out to you where you're just thinking, I have no idea how this team is going to put out a staff for this game?
So the 2 things that are worth noting, Clemson and Ole Miss are both on their 4th game. And then you've got Vanderbilt, North Carolina. This is their 3rd. So this is just a typical weekend series for them. They've got a game 3 starter. I don't know at this point if they are going to burn them. They may all be on pitch counts, but you've got the postseason starting in less than a week now. So you want to get your guys back. You want to be able to rest them and give them, adequate time to get ready. So it's kind of why you saw Jay Johnson go ahead and throw Anthony Einstein in that first game. He wanted to make sure that when push comes to shove, they're on a week rest going into the most important weekend of the season, which isn't this weekend for 99% of the teams. It's next.
Matt Grissom once again joining us here, helping us handicap the final day of the regular season for college baseball. Bracket is out tomorrow, and I've already told Matt he will be on VSiN Primetime Tuesday night. Doesn't matter if he's got family obligations. I don't care. He's going to be on. No, I'm just kidding. But we'll have Matt, and you'll hear from Matt plenty throughout the college playoffs and on to the College World Series there in Omaha. You mentioned it, Clemson, North Carolina. I know North Carolina, Florida State was a game you were locked in on. It was back and forth. Ultimately, UNC's able to pull out the victory there. I believe 7-5 was the final score. So Clemson, UNC down in Durham today. You had alluded to it yesterday. UNC pretty much locked in a top 8 seed. Is there more on the line for Clemson here? What do you expect with Clemson and UNC starting top of the hour?
Yeah, I mean, I think Clemson is probably a regional host. I think Ole Miss probably is too, regardless of what happens. TCU probably should have been, even though they lost in the championship game last night. This isn't really a must win, in my opinion. I think both of these teams are just going to kind of go at each other, not let any pitcher get really high up there in a pitch count. I mean, they're starting Ryan Lynch for North Carolina and BJ Bailey for Clemson. These are two arms that you don't typically see at a starting role in a weekend rotation. That is one of the pitching announcements we've seen. Kind of surprised that it's not Folger Boaz for North Carolina. He was their typical game 3 starter. So maybe Scott Forbes doesn't really care at this point. Maybe, you roll the dice on Clemson. I think they do have a little bit more to play for. But again, they're playing their 4th game. North Carolina's playing their 3rd. I think that may be the biggest edge that I can find on the board today, other than the Sun Belt. And let's go. This is like,
come on, baby.
This is Super Bowl right here. This is what we've all wanted. These two teams didn't play each other in the regular season. They are far and away the best 2 teams. Southern Miss, Coastal Carolina. It is accurately priced. Where our site makes Coastal -127, Southern Miss +127, whichever one you can extract some value on. It may not be there. I don't know what the run line is, what you've got to lay for the 1.5, but I think this is going to be a tight game. Southern Miss does it with pitching. They've got really good hitting too. Coastal, typically a Coastal Bombers team, their weighted runs created is actually lower this season than Southern Miss. But the pitching staff's also getting it done there. They're third best bullpen in the country. So this is just going to be an all-around great game. 2 teams that you'll definitely see in the postseason.
All right. I like my situational spots when it comes to football, when it comes to basketball. And yesterday you pointed out a perfect one and it came home. Let's get to the Big Ten championship, because I'm looking at it and UCLA, it looks like, is going to be hosting a regional more than likely. You can, tell me if I'm wrong in that assessment. You've got Nebraska, who Baseball America has as one of the first 4 outs heading into this. This game is being played in Omaha. Can I look at Nebraska here as a live dog, Matt, knowing that their livelihoods for the postseason are on the line today, and UCLA seems to be in decent shape to be hosting a regional come tomorrow?
Yes, and our projections on the site like it. Nebraska only +142. Looks like you can get them +190, even higher than that, I think, on DraftKings. Take them. It makes UCLA a slight 1.18 run margin. So if you like the run line, you feel a little better about that. Take the +1.5. I know William Hill in your backyard does those. Nebraska, I think they're a live dog in this one.
All right. Circa looks like 2-1 on the corn. So let's go.
High horn going for Nebraska, Landon Stump for UCLA.
All right, so big picture, and we'll know the bracket tomorrow, and I know we did some big picture stuff with you yesterday, but, once again, if folks missed it, from what we've seen, is there any teams, Matt, watching these conference tournaments as closely as you have, you're either buying stock on or maybe selling some stock heading into the NCAA tournament?
So it's interesting. I get asked the most throughout the season, or I have been, about Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, I think, 100-1, and then they moved to 200-1. And that tells me that the odds makers are pretty much assuming.
Oh, did we lose Matt? Oh, there he is.
Assuming that Texas A&M is not going to make the field. So be careful when you're starting to place these bets that you've got to make sure that they're in the field of 64, because you've got these bid stealers that are going out and winning these conference championship games and taking the bid, where meanwhile the favorite probably is in either way. So I think if you're looking to extract some value in a team that will make it, that's further down the board, that could possibly improve their seeding right now, I would be looking at an Ole Miss.
Yeah.
If they beat Vanderbilt's the top 8 national seed. If they win, they may be the number 1 overall seed after all this. So congratulations, Jensen.
Those Vandy boys.
But Ole Miss looks really dangerous because if they're going to be able to pitch like this and they can prove that they can win 3, 4, 5 straight days, they're an SEC team. They fit all the guidelines of what it takes to be a champion. That would be a team I'd be really worried about seeing in a super regional at this point, especially knowing that, they just absolutely dominated 3 of the top 30 offenses in the country in Florida, Arkansas, and LSU.
Grissom on X is where you can find him on social media, College Baseball Insiders. It's about to be your time to shine, Matt. Always appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely. I'm going to plug the site, collegebaseballinsiders.com. Go check out the projections.
Wes Reynolds, he joins us next.
You're tuned in to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
We keep it rolling here on a Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. Happy Memorial Day weekend to all. Hopefully you enjoy a little 3-day weekend. For me, and I talked to Andrew about this, one of our folks behind the scenes here. He and I wouldn't say I'm a lax bro. I grew up in Maryland, though. Always followed the sport a little bit. And Memorial Day weekend, to me, always included either going to the NCAA championship, which for a long time was hosted at the University of Maryland. Now it's become a bigger sport, and it's in Boston this weekend. But I've always kept a close eye on the lacrosse championships. And tomorrow we'll get my home state, Maryland, even though I'm not a Maryland fan, against Cornell, a rematch of the 2022 national championship. I say all that to say this. We all have our own traditions. And I know our next guest had a big tradition every Memorial Day weekend, living in the fine city of Indianapolis, of going to the Indy 500, maybe riding his bike down there. I know my family that lives in Indianapolis tends to ride their bikes down to the racetrack. So Wes Reynolds joins us courtesy of our progressive guest line. Wes, was it a annual tradition to head on down to kiss the bricks there for you in Indianapolis?
Yeah, for the most part, Tim. I wish I would have ridden my bike there. That's probably the best way to go to the track based on the traffic that you're seeing around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But would go there quite often. My late grandfather was the fire chief out there for many years. So went to many Indy 500s, including last year, which was one of the more exciting ones that I ever went to. Hopefully we get another good one today.
All right, let's get to it, because I was asked today on social media, are you going to talk racing? It's the biggest racing weekend of the year. And I said, calm down. Wes knows all. So when you look at the odds right now, anyone interesting or intriguing you, Wes, to throw some money out there?
Well, probably the one at the top of the board is going to be Pato Award and I think it's Circuit's 4-1. You might be able to get a 5-1. I still see one at Bet Rivers, but Pato Award, if you remember last year, lost on the last lap to Joseph Newgarden, who's now won back-to-back Indy 500s, even though he's going to have to come back from 32nd on the grid to make it 3 for 3. But Pato Award, look, he was crushed at the end of the race last year. He goes, we are so effing close, and didn't abbreviate the effing. He was right there, and he finished runner-up a couple times. So Pato Award is mad fast. He's very good on ovals, riding for the Aero McLaren team. By the way, McLaren won this morning in Monaco for the Formula One, the Grand Prix, Lando Norris. So McLaren trying to do the Monaco and Indy sweep this afternoon. I think they got a very good shot with Pato. And also, if you're looking for a dark horse, his teammate Christian Lundgaard at 25-1, who was with Rahal Letterman Lanigan. Now he upgrades teams with Aero McLaren. That could be a guy if you look in the mid-range. But in terms of the short prices, I'd say Pato Award at 5-1, and also Scott Dixon at 8-1. The best driver of this era in the IndyCar Series has only won one Indy 500, and that was back in 2008. He's got, I believe, 3 runner-ups and also 3 thirds here. So Award and Dixon, a lot of people are going to gravitate also towards Alex Palou, the man from Spain, who is about 6-1. He has won 4 or 5 races this year in the IndyCar Series. So he's won them all on road and street courses, has never won on an oval, but he's been the best driver in the class of the field and really the best driver in the series all year. But my full card was Pato Award, Scott Dixon at 8-1, and then in the mid-range, Christian Lundgaard 25-1, David Malukas driving for AJ Foyt at 27-1, and Kyle Kirkwood driving for the Andretti team at 35-1. If you want to go with a few long shots, so we'll make it 5 for the 500.
Boom! There you go. See, if you wanted analysis, I knew we'd get it from Wes and the Indianapolis native, giving his thoughts there, his favorite plays. 5 bets for the Indianapolis 500. I'm sure you've talked to many folks back in your hometown. I was curious if you'd be going back for this Saturday. Last year, if I remember correctly, or this Sunday, excuse me, it was also the same situation, right, Wes? But it was a little bit of a different feel with the Indianapolis 500 going into the Eastern Conference Finals. Remind me, I believe that was Game 4 against the Boston Celtics, if my memory serves me correctly, on the night of the Indy 500 a year ago?
Game 3 was Saturday. Game 4 was Monday. So today we actually have Pacers and Racers on the same day with the 500 green flag for 12:45 Eastern, and then 8 o'clock tonight down in Cambridge for Game 3 of the East Finals. And look, different set of circumstances here, because now are the expectations for the Pacers. Because if you look at the first 2 games, I think it's a fair assessment to say, hey, if you're a Pacer fan, you're saying we're better than these guys. Mm-hmm. We're better coached and we have the better team. And I think that they do. And I think that they're going to win the series, but I'm not ready. I know some of my Knicks fan friends are trying to put the mush on me to try to get me to be overconfident. I'm not ready necessarily. I'm talking to you, Paul Bovey, regular VSiN contributor.
Paul, by the way, Paul's got a history, man. Don't ask JVT about Paul and mushing. JVT's still not over the mush that I think Bovey put on him during the football season. So yeah, he's putting the old, mush on you, huh?
He's trying to play mind games, man. Don't play mind games with the dirtiest player in the game here, Paul. But, I think that the Pacers should feel confident, but not overconfident. The Knicks got pride, and they're tough, and they're not going to lay down. I didn't do anything with the side personally. I'm seeing mostly 2 out there in the market, kind of like the under a little bit, because I think if the Knicks are going to get a game in Indy, I do think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring, and there's rumored to be changes in that starting lineup. I think it was Ian Begley and a couple of the other New York journalists, what our Pacer fans would call state media there in New York, are putting it out that maybe, exactly. They're putting it out that maybe Mitchell Robinson may start Deuce McBride in for Josh Hart, because Josh Hart didn't see the floor a lot in the fourth quarter, near Karl Towns for that matter, but I think Josh Hart, he just hasn't given him enough offensively in this series. I thought Game 2 would be the rebound, and it certainly wasn't. So you may see Deuce McBride out there, but I'm interested to see how the Knicks are going to play this, because I don't know. You got to play Mitchell Robinson, I think, for his rebounding, but you can only have him out there too long. You can't start that guy, because then you're playing 4-on-5 offensively against a team that can score with the best of them. And I think I've had 6 double-digit scores at least in each of the first 2 games. So, yeah, I'm not doing a lot of props here, because I don't know what this Knicks starting lineup is going to be. They're putting it out that it's Robinson, but I think it might be Deuce McBride.
Talking to Wes Reynolds, giving us his thoughts on Pacers and Knicks tonight. Right now, the total sitting at 224. And, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I've been staring at the total. You look at Game 1, it was 221.5. It flies over that total. Game 2, it lands with 223 was the final number. The total in the market was 224. So we haven't really seen much of an adjustment, but you've seen this New York team, and you look at all the defensive ratings, they are just terrible from a defensive standpoint. So yeah, my mindset would be under or nothing here. Maybe you see a pretty strong effort from New York defensively, because we have not seen that really whatsoever so far in this series.
No, we have not. And if you look at Game 2, this went up to 227.5. And then all of a sudden you got a lot of sharp money, and it went down, I believe, to 224.5. And you've already seen it go under a little bit. I think there might be a 224.5 out there, but I'm probably looking to play under in this game myself. They're trying to figure out what they can do with defense. And I think probably the best thing for the Knicks to do is just to do the switch everything. The drop coverage hasn't really worked. Towns has struggled. Brunson hadn't been able to get around those screens. So I think probably the best way is to switch multiple positions. And the thing with playing Mitchell Robinson more minutes, he helps you with the rebounding. But we saw in game number 1 that Pacers miracle comeback that they won in overtime. The reason why they won is because they got Aaron Nesmith having those dribble handoffs and got Mitchell Robinson caught in the action, all those actions, and Nesmith just hit every single three in the fourth quarter. So you kind of got to pick your poison here if your kids in terms of how you defend. I think maybe doing the switching, which is what they did last year, is probably a better formula for the Knicks.
Follow him on Twitter at Wes Reynolds 1. You can catch the podcast Long Shots every week talking golf. And, of course, follow him on social media because I'm sure he will be very locked in on the biggest day in the calendar for his home state, his home city, Indianapolis. Wes, always appreciate it, man.
You bet, Tim. Thanks for having me.
There he is, Wes Reynolds at Wes Reynolds 1, and really good insight there on the Indianapolis 500. Gave you 5 bets to take a look at for the Indy 500 later on this afternoon. As mentioned, hopefully the weather does push to the side. Hey, speaking of action, if you're ready to get in on the action, First Bet will have you covered. Sign up now to access exclusive promotions and bet on hundreds of thrilling horse races every day right from your phone or computer. Visit firstbet.com. That's the number 1, stbet.com, and use the promo code VSiN200 to score a 20% rebate on all your wagers for the first 60 days up to $200. Don't miss out. Start betting today at firstbet.com. All right. On the other side, we did this yesterday. As you know, I'm craving it. I need it. I need the football in my life. I need college football to come back 90 days away from our first regular season college football game. I'm going to do a little blind resume exercise with all of you. We'll do that next. It is the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
Offer valid on standard browsers, U.S. only.
When I heard about Date My Age, I thought, really? But there I was in my empty, quiet house, my laptop on the kitchen counter, and I typed in my name. Looking for a man between the ages of 40 to 60? Sure, why not?
Date My Age is different. With verified profiles, you can feel safe and secure to explore meaningful connections with interesting and mature singles.
Date My Age made it really easy. I could join and view online profiles for free. All of a sudden, my empty house wasn't so quiet anymore. I got so much attention, it just made me feel seen and alive. Date My Age helped me start a totally new chapter in my life.
Find a friend, a lover, a partner at Date My Age. Get 60% off when you join at datemyage.com today. That's datemyage.com to connect with thousands of singles worldwide. datemyage.com.
Back so soon? Oh no, what happened?
A little incident at the dog park. We gotta head to the vet.
Oh, not again. These bills.
We can use CashNet USA. We can apply in minutes, get a fast decision, and have the money in the account as soon as the same business day. All right, Cheddar, back in the car.
When you need money fast, be the hero. All loans subject to lender approval. Speed of funding is subject to verifications and your bank's processing times. See CashNetUSA.com for more details.
You're tuned in to the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
We keep it rolling here on a Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. Thanks to Wes Reynolds giving us his insight. You know, I haven't gotten there yet, but I think I'm staring long and hard at that under. We'll see if ultimately I get there. We'll do best bets a little bit later on in the program. We'll talk to Zachary Cohen, of course, of VSiN.com. We'll get his thoughts on Game 3 between the Knicks and Pacers. He's got his column up over at VSiN.com. We will also continue our coverage of the Oilers and Stars as we will head to Edmonton. Reed Wilkins in hour number 3 as well. But we did this yesterday, and I want to hit on it here in just a moment, which is the blind resume test. Because as many of you know, I can't get enough college football in my life. We got the college football podcast up and running again. And during the fall, this is a college football show. This was the tailgate show all throughout the fall. And now we are 90 days away from week 0. Over in Ireland, we will get Kansas State and Iowa State. We will get Hawaii and Stanford. We'll get Fresno State and Kansas. So we've got games going on week 0, 90 days from now. But then 97 days from now, we get a full slate of week one action. And yesterday we talked a lot about Clemson. We played a clip of Bruce Feldman, and the love for Clemson is high. And I'm in on it too. Number one team in returning production in the country according to S&P Plus. A team that made the playoff a year ago, brings back their quarterback in my eyes, and we'll get back to my rankings that I mentioned on this show a couple weeks ago. The best quarterback returning in the country is Cade Klubnik. But what's so interesting about Clemson this year, win total 9.5, slightly juiced over. We've seen the futures market come in on them. Ari Wasserman from On3 said he would slam 20-1. That number's gone. I grabbed plus 160 on them to win the ACC. That number's down to plus 130 at DraftKings. But Matt Grill of DraftKings, who's the trading manager and puts these numbers up over at DK Sportsbook, joined me on my podcast earlier this week. And this is what he had to say regarding the Clemson-LSU game, week one at Clemson. Right now, number sits Clemson -3.
So this one to me is absolutely fascinating because this is a great example of where I think a game spread is not translated over to what the market thinks of a team out in the marketplace. There's been so much Clemson love in the national title odds, us shortening that. In the ACC odds, there's some books now that I think are even on Clemson doing the ACC. And it's why aren't they betting them against LSU? Again, laying the 2.5. So again, we made a number that's quite a bit higher than what's out in the market. We're sitting Clemson -3. I think our straight power line number is more like 5. So this one's just not matching up to me. If people really love Clemson this much, this number should be over 3. So we're sitting 3. I think that I'm going to personally be looking to lay under 3, but still there in a bit. I don't quite like making bets this, 3-4 months out. But this is one, it's just really fascinating. And here's the thing. I am not a Cade Klubnik fan. I think he's a little bit too sporadic. I think he should be a lot better than he is now after all his years starting. So I don't think Clemson is quite the slam dunk everyone thinks they are to win the conference and be a national title contender.
So a little bit of a lot to unpack there from Matt Grill from DraftKings. And by the way, we talked for about 50 plus minutes on the podcast this week. So check it out as we went through all of the week one games and what movement they've seen, why they put numbers the way that they are. DK right now, the only book out there with all 136 teams with win totals and all of the week 0 and week 1 lines out there. But interesting kind of final nugget there, because he talked about how he would look to lay the 3 and then his current number is at 5 for Clemson LSU. But he is a little bit on the contrarian side in that he believes there might be some value on Miami, that Clemson is not the slam dunk, as he said, to win the ACC. I would not enjoy that, but maybe that is the case as we're starting to see that come in. And that leads us to doing some of these more blind resumes. So yesterday we did a bunch on Carson Beck, and I'm starting to come around on the possibility that Carson Beck of Miami maybe isn't as bad as we thought or think he's going to be. And you looked at the numbers, and these were courtesy of David Hale over at ESPN.com. We did some blind resumes, Garrett Nussmeier versus Carson Beck, or Carson Beck versus Carson Beck from 2023 versus 2024. So I wanted to do a couple more because they're heading into this year of college football. Obviously, the headliner is Arch Manning from a quarterback position. But the thing I talked about a couple weeks ago on this show when I did my top 12 rankings, I think I actually did them on primetime, was there's a lot of good quarterbacks this year. And some of them are maybe getting overlooked a little bit. So let's go to our first blind resume, because one of these quarterbacks that we're showing you is getting a lot of hype heading into this upcoming year. Quarterback A lost his bowl game, went 6-1. QBR of 80.1, 64% completion percentage, 20 touchdowns, 5 turnovers, 314 yards per game. These are the final 7 games a year ago. Quarterback B, 6-1, loss in bowl, identical QBR, 80.1, 67 completion percentage, 18 touchdowns, not 80, that would be a lot, 5 turnovers, 302 yards per game. QB-A is the very hyped Lenoris Sellers, and QB-B is Sawyer Robertson of Baylor, who doesn't really seem to be getting much love at all. In my rankings heading into this year, I had Lenoris Sellers at 6, and I had Sawyer Robertson at 10. And I'll be honest, I had to go back and add Sawyer Robertson when I first did the top 10 and had to make it top 12 because I had overlooked Sawyer Robertson. So Baylor, maybe a team getting overlooked a little bit. They play that Friday night against Auburn of week number 1. So Lenora Sellers, a lot of hype, understandably so, down there in South Carolina, a team that many believed had a chance to maybe even get into the playoff the way that they finished the season out. And then Sawyer Robertson, almost identical numbers there. All right, let's go to the second one. I think this one's going to be fascinating to you. Going back to week 7 of 2023, we've got QBA on the left, 76.3 QBR, 64.9 completion percentage, 8.01 yards per pass, 40 passing touchdowns, 18 picks. QBB, 75.6 QBR, 62.9 completion percentage, 7.79 yards per pass, 40 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So QBA, since week 7 of 2023, outside of the interceptions, which are notable, 8 more, he's better than everything else. QBB is the quarterback that many people believe is playing for the best team in the country headed into this year, Drew Aller. QBA, the often overlooked TCU quarterback, Josh Hoover. And I'll be honest, I don't have Josh Hoover in my top 12, and I probably should. Because when you look at those numbers for a quarterback in Drew Aller, who, yes, last thing we saw from Drew Aller was throwing a horrific interception to Christian Gray. I thought it was a terrific interception, personally speaking, but it was a bad throw. But they've upgraded the talent at wide receiver. They obviously lost Tyler Warren. But the belief is that Drew Aller could have been a first-round pick this past year in the NFL draft, comes back. Maybe he'll be the number 1 overall pick. A lot of starting opportunities for both of these guys throughout their career, and the identical numbers out there. Josh Hoover, outside the interceptions, which are notable, is actually better in every category than Drew Aller. All right, last one I want to hit on this because I was curious, and I threw this out there on social media. When you think about the G5 this year, no real quarterbacks jump out to you. And maybe that's just the nature of the G5, right? The best quarterback in the G5 moved on to Duke from Tulane and Darian Mensah. But I bring it up to do a little blind resume here. QBA, 74.9 QBR, 62% completion percentage, 7.1 yards per dropback, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks. QBB, 74.7 QBR, 62% completion percentage, 7.4 yards per dropback, 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Now, worth noting, those numbers are against FBS competition, eluding the FCS contest a year ago. QBB, ladies and gentlemen, was the second-round pick to the New Orleans Saints and likely starter Tyler Shuck. QBA, Matt Madsen, the QB of Boise State. The game manager galore, Matt Madsen. So maybe he is the best G5 quarterback coming back this year. I think it's Blake Horvath of Navy, but you look at those numbers, Matt Madsen, yes, he handed the ball to Ashton Genty quite a bit, but maybe worth looking at him a little bit more. All right, real quickly before we get out of here, I want to revisit my QB rankings. I left off Carson Beck. I left off Rocco Becht. I left off Baron Morton. Might have to change this up a little bit. I've got Drew Aller at 5. Should he be that high? We did the blind resume. Josh Hoover, very comparable numbers. Got Lenora Sellers 6. Maybe I have Sawyer Robertson of Baylor. Underrated. 90 days, ladies and gentlemen. 90 days until college football is here. It is the VSiN Weekend Morning Line.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.